Measuring for a dog wheelchair can be just a tad bit overwhelming, which is why we're veering off our previously planned interview with Dr. Hannah Capone from CAM, Canine Arthritis Management, to bring you this special instructional video. Now, don't worry, Hannah will be joining us in our next episode. My name is Sarah McKeegan. I've teamed up with Jenny Moe, canine rehab therapist and co-owner of Doggon Wheels, to bring you this episode from Navigating DM and Canine Disc Disease in 2024, and I'm making it available to you. If you happen to be listening to this episode, that's good. Watching it will be way better. So I will make sure to drop the link in the show notes, and I highly recommend you watch it. Don't just listen to it. And if you happen to be listening in August of 2024, you're in luck because I have a special for you. We ran that summit 2 years in a row, about 15 hours of recordings from guest speakers around the world. And I'm going to make it available for half off. So you basically get 2023 and 2024 for the price of 1 year. It's an incredible savings. It will help you help your dog, whether you're a professional working with dogs with intervertebral disc disease and DM, or you have a dog that has one of these conditions. Check it out. Link in the show notes. And without further ado, let's get started with today's episode.
There'll be pictures walking you through. Eddie's pictures are really similar. So we're looking at, for Doggon Wheels, the height from the floor to the top of your dog's bottom. I'll talk you through what happens if your dog isn't able to stand. The same, the floor to the top of the shoulders. We're looking at the length from the bony part of your dog's bony part, like compress any fluff all the way there for step 3 to the back of the front legs, armpit. So that's our body length. So ours are similar to Eddie's, but they're different. Step 4 is taking a soft tape measure, and we're going to measure around the biggest part of your dog's chest, which is usually right behind the front legs. And if you look at the harness, you'll understand why. That's what we're looking at that measurement for. We're going to look at the girth measurement as high up on the thigh as you can get. And that's going to be like for your leg hole opening. Mm-hmm. So you want to, that makes sense why you don't want to measure lower down. So I'll show you that. And then we're looking at the width at the hips. Mm-hmm. And in this case, you do ideally want your dog to be in some sort of supported standing position, because some dogs, if you just measure at like the level of the hip bone, the greater trochanter, mm-hmm. but they have a really wide base of support, the cart may come out too narrow, and it may impair the way the dog walks. So if your dog stands like this guy, like really wide apart, especially when they walk, then make sure your measurement comes down to the lower thigh.
That's such a good point. Can you say that again? I think it is actually a really good point that people often miss.
Yeah. And the same for the shoulders. So when we're looking at the width measurement for the cart, and especially on Doggon Wheels, this is the only measurement that is, or the only part of the cart that's not adjustable. So we're looking at not just the width at the hips, at the level of the hip bone or the greater trochanter, because if your dog stands with a really wide or walks with a really wide base, then if we've made the cart only this wide, the leg posts may get in the way of how they're walking normal. Take that into consideration. Sending in pictures along with your measuring devices and or even some video. The more pictures and video that you send, whatever company you choose, the better, because we're making custom carts for you, whichever company, the knowledge that we get to the best of our abilities. If something doesn't look right, you'll probably get a request for double checking, but that's why they're not questioning your measurements. We just want to make sure that it's done correctly the first time. I know. She knows she's getting peanut butter.
I can hear her. She's so cute. Tell her Auntie Sarah says hello.
Auntie Sarah says hi. She wants to snuggle with you.
I do.
And the same for the shoulder. If you have, I may change my measurements actually to include the ribs. I know Eddie's Wheels has a measurement at the rib cage, because some dogs have a big rib cage. And that's actually, I didn't bring it upstairs with me, but the sidearms, the bar for the cart actually comes along just above the top. And actually right here, So we want to know the width of the shoulders, but really, what's the widest part of your dog is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to measure like this. If at all possible, I highly recommend, as do most companies, that you get somebody to help you take measurements. Your vet or one of the vet techs will usually help you if you pop in for that, even just for them to hold up the dog so that you can take the measurements. It's worth it to be more accurate. Ask a neighbor for help. You can support the dog and just have them take the measurements if they're not sure about handling, but it's worth it. I know, especially for these bigger dogs, it's really hard to do it by yourself. Worst case scenario, you can stand them up over a peanut or something for support, potentially suspend them with something if you have the abilities. But let me show you before we measure. If you have the peanut ball, you can use this. So let's see if Bondi will do it for us. If my dog is not able to move, I'm not doing the same thing. I would be bringing them to the side with their harness, good girl, and then kind of walking them on sideways to get them standing over front feet and back feet. The end result hopefully should look, this is not what we're going to have our patients or our pets doing.
This is where a help them up harness makes a big difference. And there she goes.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I knew she wasn't going to stay. If I had a dog wearing a help them up harness, I like to get them over the peanut if you have one by going sideways. So I would walk them up to the side and then kind of shuffle them on sideways so that I'm not asking them to go up and over again. That's putting a lot of stress on the spine. So she's not going to stay on the peanut for us, but she will eat peanut butter. And this also may help if you're like, my dog won't stay still. Look, you can smear some stuff on a plate, or if you have a licky mat.
If you put it in the freezer beforehand, it lasts a long time.
Yes, it does. All right, just a second. If that moves, that'll scare her. There we go. All right, so I'm going to try and do this without getting my body in your way. Don't do this on a soft surface. That's one no. So on a firm surface, I would put my measuring device next to her. So this is one photo that's super helpful. Just make sure that you check your photo and that you can actually read the numbers in it when you send it to the company. So I'm going to have to break this up. I would use some sort of flat, like a ruler, across the top of the shoulder, the hips or the shoulders, whatever I'm doing. I can't let go of her. She's going to swing away.
I had a client once take a 2-4 box, like a case of beer, and they cut like the frame out of it, and then they cut it down the middle, and then they were able to make their own calipers and together based off of the width. It was so creative.
Exactly. Let me finish on the height here. So yeah, you're going to have something straight. Check out my thumb, if you can see, would be telling you that she's 17 inches tall at the hips. So you want to make sure you're not just eyeballing it. Place something across their body so that you see exactly where it is on a tape measure. And then for body length, so I would do that also. For body length, you're going to go just behind your front leg. All right, let me just talk to you. If I go to that stuffed animal, I might have to do that.
It's all good. Body was a good sport. And it's real life, right? It's not smooth. When I take measurements for you guys, it takes me forever to make measurements sometimes.
I mean, this is definitely where another person would come into play. So I'd keep her busy with something more valuable. That body length, now I can show you. I would use something straight across the body. And then I would make sure you look at your eye level. This would be 9 inches high. So again, if you take a picture of it to send it, make sure that the numbers are, you can read them in the photo. It's the same. The size is very square. Well, actually, I take it back. 9.5 inches tall at the shoulder. And the body length, again, is from the bony part of the butt to just behind the front legs. There's a lovely seam right here. This would be, and same thing, you can just use your hand. This would also be 9 inches. It's a very square dog. The next step is chest or girth measurements. So we're going to look at chest girth. So I'm going to use a soft tape measure. If you don't have a sewing tape measure, you don't need to go buy one. Just use ribbon or a shoelace and then measure it out against your regular tape measure. So you don't need to go buy stuff. So we're just going to measure just behind the front legs and not super tight. But if you do have a really fluffy dog, you can compress it a little bit. So that was 16. Yeah, 16 inches. And then for the thigh, this is where it's important to make sure you get all the way up and as high as you can, because the saddle is going to fit like a swimsuit. It's going to fit like right around this line. So I'm going to take my tape measure and then kind of shuffle it to make sure I'm all the way up. Again, if your dog's not weight bearing, this one you can get away with laying down. So that's 11 1/4. Step 5. If we were doing the front leg, same thing. The front leg's notoriously tricky for getting a good measurement. So same thing, make sure you just really kind of floss it back and forth and then take the measurement as high up as you can, which would be 9 1/2 there. Only if you're talking about a quad part. So step 5 was thigh girth. Okay, now we're going to do width. So what you were saying, Sarah, about the making your own calipers, this is a set of calipers. These are lovely ones from Eddie's Wheels. So they slide back and forth.
They are pretty grand. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this was one of the original ones, but I think I got these from them in like 2010 or something. I looked online. If you're a rehab professional, I actually do recommend investing in them, or if you order a lot from Eddie's Wheels, they'll send you one. But if you're looking online, there's all kinds of different calipers from hardware and whatnot, and they're not that expensive. This is worth your time because all you have to do is open it up wide enough that it's going to fit over the hips. And again, if you have a dog who has kind of a wide stance, you're going to make sure you're going down to the lower thigh, and just so that it's touching on each side. You don't need to squish it in there. And now I'm going to measure that distance. If you have one of the other calipers, it'll have numbers on it for you. So that was 5 inches. And then the same thing for the shoulders. So I'm going to go a little wider and then slide it in. So looking at that, I don't know, can you see from that angle? Yep. So same thing. I'm going to go a little bit further, maybe just above the elbow. And that measurement would be 6 1/4. And I'm going to come back to show you one more way to do width. The last measurement for a Doggon Wheels rear part would be the waist girth. So if your dog's a male, just go behind the set anatomy. Same thing, just not too tight. That's 13 inches. That one is important because if I have a dog with a really deep chest, like say a greyhound, super deep chest, itty bitty waist, but a pretty significant thigh girth, I don't necessarily want to make my rear harness just based on the thigh girth. That might tell me that I need to make my leg holes a little bit closer between because the pelvis is smaller. So right. That's why I always wondered, I'm like, why do we need that? Before I took over the company.
I did actually wonder that question. So that makes a lot of sense.
I know. So yes, it does help. If you don't have handy dandy calipers, what you can do, the easiest thing is just get your second person. Here's my dog's butt. Just have them hold their hands, but then you have to make sure that they're holding them straight and not going like this, not going like that. Make sure that they are straight up on. And that's where in the pictures you see 2 pieces of cardboard or 2 pieces of something else to give you something to measure between. The same thing, you have to make sure you're not going like this and you're not going like that. That it's, again, if I'm got a dog with the wide base, it's going to look like they're not really touching the hips. And then you're going to measure the distance between the 2 objects. And then walk-in wheels, they're just measuring the distance from the bottom of the foot, like in a weight bearing position, up to the groin there.
Mhm.
So the length of your dog's leg from the inside.
The inseam.
Weight. And they have some nice pictures. I'm sure there's a video on their website.
I think they have instructions written out with pictures.
Yeah. And if you ever have questions, just contact the company. I know I'll hop on, if we really need to, I'll hop on a video call and walk you through it. I know that Leslie at Eddie's Wheels is super helpful. And if you have questions about measurements, because I do really want to make sure that we've taken the time to get them right.
Thank you again for listening to another amazing episode of Dogs That Can. It really does mean the world to me that you're here, you've joined this movement, learning all the things you can do to help your dog when they're injured or hurt, get moving again. I hope you found today helpful. And if you did, check out the links in the show notes below. And be sure to share this episode with a friend. Use the hashtag mydogcan. That's the hashtag mydogcan. And don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you are listening to your podcast so that you know the next time I drop one of these episodes with these amazing guest speakers. And if you have a dog with DM or IVDD, intervertebral disc disease, or you're a professional that works with them, don't miss our summer special. It's 50% off the summit recordings from 2023 and 2024. And the speakers are invaluable. Until next time, movement is medicine, and you can help your dog move better and feel better. Thanks for watching. Oh, one more thing. Disclaimer. This podcast is designed to empower you with knowledge so that you can help your dog move better and feel better. It is not meant to replace any medical advice related to your dog provided to you by your veterinarian, your rehab therapist, or another qualified professional. Got it? Good.